That grants.
I read my copy.
So all that extra money we thought we had for all these little extra projects, no longer. You can do it. All right, it's 6:30. Mr. Pope, you're up. It's not you're up, but you're up.
So for the work session tonight, we have a couple of things, discussion about the non-franchise awards, which are on the agenda tonight. A summary of the franchise review, just to make sure I captured council's intent when we start translating that into ordinance amendments and contract amendments. And then, if we have time, an overview of some STR notice requirement amendments. We've been trying to keep our STR amendments in our annual winter review. We had a hearing case a few months ago that brought some things to our attention that we feel like we might need to propose for an off-cycle change on those. So I'll get to those if we have time. If not, I'm happy to discuss any and all of this during the regular meeting also. So first up is our non-franchise business awards. These are surf lessons and yoga lessons that we approve for the beach each year. Basically, the memo, what it boils down to is for the first time ever, we have more applicants than we do have spots. Traditionally, we've had four providers, 2 surf lessons and 2 yoga vendors filling 6 spots. This year, 5 spots. This year, we've got six providers who have applied for those same 5 spots. I've got some options here in the memo. These are just suggestions on how to solve the problem. There are obviously other ways to do it. We could add more spots. We could look at a sharing model. Council has the ability to approve as many commercial lessons on the beach as you want to. So that's up to you guys. So just wanted to have some time in the work session before the meeting to talk about that issue, the number of spots versus number of vendors. But separately from that, with the surf lessons in particular, we've kind of, our operational approvals have the split from what the ordinance says. So the ordinance says that a surf lesson, which pays the flat non-franchise fee of $500 a year, is limited to 5 students. A few years ago, a couple of years ago, we granted that up to 10 students.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
We granted up to 10 students, so all the surf lessons were allowed to have 10 students. And then last year, we granted one provider up to 20 students, and in return for a 2% gross on top of the 5% fee. A full surf franchise has to pay $5,000 and 4% gross. A full surf lesson under the ordinance is a $500 fee and a limit of 5 students. Right now is what we've got, blanket exception for up to 10 students with one provider with a 20 student limit and a 2% fee. So I feel like this is our time to address that situation either by amending the ordinance, creating a new franchise, extending what I'm going to call the semi-franchise model to all the surf lesson providers, just doing something to make it a level even playing field amongst all the surf lesson providers, or kind of taking away that distinction between surf lessons and surf camps and making a new franchise, whatever you guys want to do. Just here to talk about that and figure out how you guys would like to address that. So, where would we like to start?
Well, first, I'd just like to say, I asked Joe, so I think I'll be right. If we start a new franchise, or we create a hybrid franchise, or special franchise, as you call it, we'd have to go out for bids. It's not like I can create a franchise and give it to Mr. McFarland.
That would be the traditional route of approval.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
So let's start, I guess, with the surf lesson providers. Any other feelings on it?
I think that both of them, next year we're going to be relooking at our surf camp franchises and all that sorts. We haven't really done that in a while, and we all know that we've been missing the boat. Not missing the boat, but there's some things there that we need to change to get up to times. I think we keep this as simple as possible this year. The 4 that were allowed last year are allowed back this year under the same locations. We put a fee amount on them that's a little nominal, and just roll with it, because next year I don't want to get anybody in now that's just going to be disappointed. Next year, we need to get into a big conversation. I think some of these need to be included in that next year, whether we make the yogas a franchise or not. We up that. That's a conversation we have to do when we're looking at the franchises themselves. So my recommendation would be to keep it as simple as possible this year, go through it, and then next year put it all into the same discussion, see if we want to make them one, hash them out separately, however we need to adjust them. Then we can have the distinction between the two of them while we're discussing both of them at the same time. If we discuss these now, then we get in the next discussion, we're gonna have to separate from what we said now, and it can just get a little confusing if we don't do them all at one time.
So what do you suggest about the number of people for surf lessons?
There were 4 that were approved last year for 5. We keep, just reinstate exactly what was there last year.
Everybody goes back to 10.
I'm talking about as far as the numbers out of the, just going down the list, out of the 6 out of the 5 spots, there were 4 of them awarded. We would keep that. We do
No, I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about the number of students.
Yeah.
I would think that the 10's fine, but we need $1,000 from each one of them, or a percentage instead of the 2%. It was a $500 fee. I think that's, once again, in my mind, I think that's way low. I think, for the $1,000 instead, and then next year we look to add them into the franchises, or how we want to distinguish between them next year when we do them all at one time.
Okay, I got that. But right now, you're saying
Right.
every surf lesson goes back to 10 people across the board.
I would say, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because that's what we did a couple years ago, and that worked out fine. That's actually, if you look at the camps that are there, that's 95% of their business. So that way, that's a concession I think they could easily make, and we can live with that one, and we get a little more, money in the return for them utilizing the beach for rent and utilities.
do you want to go 10 but down 2%? Just leave that out.
Well, we had the one that 2% was.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
one went up to 2%, we did 20,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
500 is the base fee. So I would recommend, at least $1,000 each, either going up on the base fee and that's it, or doing a percentage of everybody. I think the cleaner way to do it would just be to make a base fee for them this year, knowing that next year we're gonna reevaluate all this with the franchises.
And
I would
every-
recommend 1,000. I would recommend doubling it, because it hasn't gone up since we started again.
And everybody in a surf lesson has 10 people. There's no 20, no 15s, 10 across the board. Because if you don't, you're gonna be creating a hybrid that you're gonna have to go out for bid.
Yeah, it keeps us out of that fiasco, but out of that endeavor, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. If we give everybody 10, we do 10, but I think I'm like what Mr. Rich is saying, the mayor's saying, I don't like having a hybrid that stands out by itself, and
You know what? Maybe next year when we get them all together and really start looking at apples to apples and oranges and everything, then maybe that's the time we decide. Okay, we want this to be franchised like this, and the sub and something else that we do this way with. But you can't really discuss it without having them all available to discuss and dissect. You know what I mean? That's why I like to keep it simple this year.
if
We
we
need
look
to
at
figure out the
money,
number of students that qualifies as a franchise. I think that's the thing we have to define.
That's already established by the franchises for next
We
year.
got the
Yeah.
20, yeah, so I mean,
So we said
need a
10.
threshold. No, I'm talking about going forward.
That's not so much.
I know, yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. Gotcha.
Ted, I'm wondering, on the hybrid, what was the dollar amount on the 2%? How much,
On the one we got for the 20 exception for the
So-
on the exception where we pay?
Joe, can we disclose that publicly?
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Because it's based on gross receipts, and if we,
Yeah, I would rather not do that.
business license information is generally protected, so.
Maybe you could share that at an executive board session sometime.
Yes.
But I would like to have some idea of, I think what Mr. Rich was saying, we don't know what that amounts to. We don't want to be onerous, but $500 is pretty low.
That's why I said for this year, just to keep it simple, I think $1,000 is it's not invasive on anybody that's doing that kind of business on the beach. And then we can kind of see where everything sits. Next year, we'd have all the eggs on the table.
$1,000 and a limit of 10.
That's what I'm recommending out there.
So are we saying then the one that we allowed 20 with the 2% is no longer?
It's 10 and it's 1,000 flat. It's no 2%.
So it basically
just like everybody
reverts to
else.
10, it's not,
Yeah.
okay, so that is
Everybody's the same.
consistent across the board.
The Italians.
Is the revenue from, that these groups generate, is it fairly consistent? I know I don't need to know the number, but if we're charging everybody a blanket fee, that assumes everybody's pretty much, to me,
Sharing umbrella, the franchise numbers that we saw were pretty consistent.
So,
And I
yeah,
think
I can
that
tell you about
includes these
franchise
guys, but-
numbers. I'm not familiar with these
That's-
non-franchise revenues.
because I was, $1,000 flat fee is great, but if it's a different percentage for each one, it could be onerous or it could be way low. I don't know.
We can pull the grocery receipts.
Well,
and
I would
give-
say this, if you're running a business on the beach and $1,000 a year for your rent and utilities is too much, you might have a bad business model.
That's not the point. It's just trying to make it so it reflects what that person's actually collecting. That's the point.
Okay.
I mean, the other thing is when I look at these numbers, for each one of the organizations, they may not want, they may want to stay with 5. They may not want to go to 10, and
That's their choice. They can have from 0 to 10.
That's their option now. They can go from 0 to
That's their
0.
ceiling.
They don't have to have 10 people to do it. They can do whatever.
But that's why I was wondering if the
I-
percentage wouldn't be more fair in that respect. Yeah.
I think that's just includes too much staff time, to be honest with you. Like, let's say next year, if we're doing, like, if we're looking at everything together, we can determine that, sure. Now we don't have all the information in front of us to make it easier, keep it as simple as possible for this year, and then next year we really dissect it and look into all that stuff. And yeah, you might be, I think that would be the most fair way to go. But right now, can't exactly worry about, what's the fairest way to go, and we're trying to get this done. We don't have all that.
so if that's the case, why don't we leave it at 500? Leave it at 500, give it 10 across the board and revisit it.
We just doubled the size of their class. There's a propensity to make twice as much money. So 500 to
I
1,000.
think y'all are, I hear you, and there's no problem with that, and that's definitely a number that we can argue, but don't think about, that is technically, when you think about things like this in a franchise on the beach, that is their rent and utilities per se. So when you think about things in that regard, the property on Folly Beach is very expensive. I mean, anything would be way more than that normally. I think that's a drop in the bucket compared to what, you might see next year. I don't see that being an issue, but we can, if y'all let her leave it at 5, that's a voting point of concern, go for it.
And we wouldn't consider, if it's below 5, it's 500, if it's at 10, it's 1,000?
Everybody's gonna put 5 on their sheets.
I think what Mr. Rich is trying to do is use the least amount of staff time. Because if you start doing what you just said, now we gotta have somebody out there auditing them.
Young heads.
I guess I'm used to the honor principle, so maybe
Well-
that's, I know.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I'm not saying everybody's gonna lie, but you're still gonna have to have somebody audit them. So,
All right.
you got any more questions?
No, sir.
All right.
Just a note, since the ordinance does say 5 folks, I would like when we vote later tonight, if you guys like it to be 10, just to make that a fresh motion for this year to allow up to 10 students. So that way we have an up-to-date council approval for 10 students.
That's reasonable.
So that's the non-franchise awards. And then we're back to our franchise awards, and this is mostly centered on the beach and chair, or the beach chair and umbrella rental franchises, which are due for renewal next year. We've had a multi-year, multi-month review of some changes, and I just wanna make sure
Could we
that.
just go back and revisit yoga?
Mhm.
Are you considering a limit of 10 people for yoga, or are we gonna address
The
that at a
ordinance has
different
no
time?
limit on yoga.
Okay.
With,
Further.
you just brought up about the franchises for the beach and chair, that they're up for renewal next year? Okay. When are the surf franchises up for renewal? Is that next year as well?
No, I'm pretty sure we awarded them last year. So we have 4.
So it'd be really advantageous if we could talk about all of the franchises at one time, if we waited until the fall. I know it'd be pushing a little bit, but at least that way, we have everything on the table at once, because like I just said, I think some of these might need to be added into the franchise, but we need the surf ones up to be able to discuss them.
Most of this is centered on the beach chairs and umbrellas. The franchise, we just awarded the surf franchises last year for 5 years.
So we'll just look at that, and next year we can look at all this together
I
if we
think
need to.
When we do all this for the beach and chair, we can highlight anything that affects the surf folks and work that into that for sure. Because last year before we awarded the surf ones, we raised the minimum. We made a few changes last year that
Right.
started in effect for the surf, but didn't catch the chair and umbrella. So right now, we're kind of catching the chairs and umbrellas up to the surface, and then we can look at all.
With the surface that we ordered them last year, what is it? Is it 2 years and then we can agree to a third and fourth and
I think
fifth?
it was three, and then agreed to the fourth.
3, we can usually agree to 4 and 5? Okay. So we literally could, I mean, next spring, we could relook at all of this together and then say, okay, this is gonna be in effect. We're gonna stop it after 3 and put this in effect if we wanted to. Okay, that works.
So this next section, I just want to make sure I'm on the same, tracking the same page as city council before we go too much further in trying to formalize some of these. So I've kind of broken them down into contract amendments, ordinance amendments, and things that aren't going to change. For contract amendments, we want to bring back some revisions to the existing contract for approval by council and then our existing vendors to formalize what they can do with ATVs. And I've got that ATVs can be used in section 1, which is third to third. Those can only be used for beach chairs and umbrellas, but they can be used basically without limit in section 1. In section 2, you can deliver chairs and umbrellas by an ATV, but you've got to access the beach from the closest drivable beach walkover. So you can't drive from the pier to 1700 East Ashley, but you can go from 1500 East Ashley to 1700. Only 2 ATVs at any time in one section by any vendor. There's no time limit in either section for when you can use the ATVs except for during turtle season, and you can't start until after the all clear comes out. And all the drivers are supervised, all drivers and supervisors have to prove beach driver training through a course similar to the one that we've got examples of from our existing vendor. It's a beach safety driving certification course. And then the franchisee has to name us as insured to protect us in case there are any accidents. Is that what you guys remember in terms of agreement for ATV operation? All right. In terms of tents, each vendor can have a tent with a logo in section 1. In section 2, just like anyone else, they can have tents, but they can't have tents with their business logos on it, and all tents need to come down before sunset or after business hours, per our ordinance that prevents tents left overnight on the beach. Other things that need to be left on the, or need to be, everything needs to come off the beach, but in section 1, wooden loungers can remain overnight on the beach for 24 hours a day. Chair and umbrella groupings, 30 feet wide, 30 feet deep, at least 30 feet between groups, and not on 30 feet on either side of the walkover, to make sure we're not blocking the walkovers. The shed on 2nd Street East, we're gonna come up with a price to buy the shed back from the vendor who paid for it. We will present that to you guys for your review with a credit for the time, basically reducing the price we pay from the price they paid with a credit for the time they've used it on our land for free. Does that sound right? Okay. And then the no change items, no one can deliver anything on the beach that is not a chair or umbrella. So no bringing coolers, cornhole,
Boogie
bachelorette
boards,
parties,
et cetera, et cetera.
nothing can be delivered to the beach that's not a chair or an umbrella. Those things can still be sold from the shed, and the people can take them to the beach. They can be delivered to beach houses. People can take them to the beach, but the vendor cannot take them and deliver them to the beach. Wedding chairs can be delivered, but only from the nearest walkover. You can't drive those up and down the beach to get them to where they're going. And there's currently no storage allowed on the beach. We're gonna ask the remaining vendor to take their storage off the beach. We're gonna work with DHEC and the Army Corps to find out what the permit application process is to allow storage on the beach. We will make those applications and see what those agencies say. If they approve it, we'll let storage come back on the beach. We will define our storage needs in terms of the size, material, anchoring of the storage, and that's what we'll submit to those agencies.
What's the possibility of leaving the storage until we get the answers to everything?
I have to say that now that we're on notice that it's illegal and we're liable for it, if it causes any damage, my recommendation would be to take it down. Now,
And
now that we're aware of it, I
And the
feel like
Corps
we have
already
to
said they need to go.
Yeah, there's no plausible deniability here.
And franchise ordinance amendments, some, you know, these aren't as timely as the contract amendments. We're gonna require audits prior to, if you've had a franchise and you apply for a franchise again, we're gonna require you to go through a business license audit to make sure you're squared away with receipts paid to the city. We're gonna end the jet ski franchise, which has not been used for several years. And on that topic, something that's happened since the last meeting is that one of our paddleboard franchisees has given up his spot, John Ori. He hasn't actually been operating it on the beach for a while. He runs most of his business out of the boat landing. So he let us know this year that he's just not gonna renew that franchise. He wants out. So we do have a paddleboard franchise that's either open or can be killed or can be repurposed by you guys. But he won't be pursuing operations on the beach. Amending the ordinance to require everyone, not just our franchise holders, but Vacay Gear, beachgear.com, those folks, anyone who supplies rental goods to be used on the beach, to make sure they're all labeled with the name of the company that provided it, so that we can track down where these things came from and we find them on the beach. Codifying the franchises for 3 years with two more year options. Codifying the minimum bid for 5K to extend to the shared umbrella rentals, which already applies to the surf lessons. Creating a new franchise for concessions at 3rd Street West. Pretty sure I heard the council is ready to do that. We have an RFQ ready that we'll review when we do our big franchise review.
Will we get a chance to have input on that,
Oh,
or
yeah,
are you looking
yeah.
for that now?
We will give you the draft for you guys to respond. And we've based the draft based on the solicitations that we've gotten. And we've gotten a handful of folks who've written, I'd like to do this, this, and this is what it would take. So we've kind of put that all in the RFQ for you guys to review and say, well, no, we clearly don't want to give up parking spaces, or we definitely don't want them to bin food products with wrappers. And we'll edit that and then we'll put it out for bid. The shed we already talked about, but once we buy it, we'll make that an amenity for that franchise spot. So when franchise bids come around, the person who bids for section 1 on the east side bids knowing they will get use of the shed, and hopefully that drives up the cost of that bid. Taking out the beach storage. One important change that Joe flagged, or the mayor flagged, I think actually, Mayor, this was you. Right now, the ordinance still says that city council will hear business license and franchise revocation hearings. We're proposing to route that through the hearing officer. You guys sent business license revocations to them a few years ago, so we think the franchise revocation should probably go that route too. And then turn the whole bid process for franchises into an RFQ versus just a straight up bid. Does that track with what we discussed? All right, so the contract amendments will be next up to you guys, because those are timely, so we'll get that to you for approval hopefully in May. And that way our existing beach, chair, and umbrella franchisees will be operating, all our policies will be put into their contract for the rest of their term. So that gives us 5 minutes for the STR amendments. So these amendments these proposed amendments stem from a hearing we had for a rental property that got 4 strikes within a 12-month period. So according to our ordinance, we moved to revoke that license. At the hearing, the judge kind of had 2 buckets of concerns. One was related to notice and the timing of our notice. We did have some lag time in our notice to the applicant. The way the process works is a citation is issued, the owner or agent has noticed that there has been a citation issued, they need to come to court. They come to court, the ticket is disposed with, and if they're found guilty, we notice them that they had a strike. We had some slow notices go out, so folks were missing their chance to defend themselves in court because they didn't get notice of the citation in time to prepare for the court date. So the judge took issue with that. And so procedurally, we've tightened up our notice turnaround time to 2 business days. So if you get a citation, we'll have the notice out the door in 2 business days. We'll also simultaneously email it to the owner and the agent on file, so no one can say they didn't get the notice in time. Another problem, well, not problem, another concern with the notice was certified mail. Our ordinance allows us to do certified mail, US mail, or email, and we've tried to push certified mail because it's so trackable and it comes with a receipt. But we had some folks who dodged their certified mail long enough that they missed their court and were found guilty. But when we took that to the hearing officer, she said that since we chose to use certified mail, we had to abide by the rules, and if they never picked it up, they never picked it up, so we could not assume that they had notice. So we've got some amendments in here to clarify that certified mail, regular mail, and email all count as proper notice, and that when you sign the rental registration, you are signing your signature that you understand that email, certified mail, or regular mail can be a notice, and we're gonna start pairing all our certified mails with emails, just to kind of have a backup notice in case someone opens their post office box and declines to take that certified mail from the city.
Would you still have to have the receipt of the email being received and read?
Yeah, we're gonna have all those with red receipts. Hopefully someone will, yeah.
Yeah, I just, again, this judge, I mean, there was some skepticism about how effective certified mail is, and thoughts, certainly the owner argued that email would be so much better, would have been better. And I think given all the input we've heard from that, I think we really need to have that email go out. I mean, that's just the modern world, and certified mail is difficult. I mean, there's just like, people can ignore it.
I'm
They
not
can get-
questioning whether, I mean, it's definitely faster.
I'm just explaining what happened, you know?
I just wanna make sure that, but we're gonna have a receipt read so that we know that the customer received and read the email. Cause they can do this, you can do the same thing with an email.
You can ignore the.
I mean, it is faster, but if you have a receipt read, then you know they've received a copy of it, is what I was getting
All
at.
we can track is that it was delivered, so if they choose to not click red, we don't get that back. But we do have where it was delivered to that email address, we have that receipt now.
Is that
You can't
enough?
see where it was read.
No,
I-
if they
Unless-
choose it says
I can't.
red, yes or no, they can hit no, and we
sorry.
don't get that red receipt. Yeah.
But yeah, there is an option in Outlook. If you get an email and it'll say, Councilman Rich has requested a read receipt, and you can click no.
Yeah, so we get a delivered receipt, we know it was delivered to their email address, but
But for the
And
judge.
I wanna be clear too, the application, they are going to have to provide us with an email,
yes.
with the understanding, your notices are coming to this email. Just-
It's legally, as long as we send that
Fine.
email, we're
Yeah.
covered, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the
I
rental
think it
registration-
is going to be, I don't read the
Yeah, yeah.
judge's mind,
Sure.
but she will be much happier with the emails, even if there's not a return receipt. Now, if she isn't, well, I don't know, we'll have to go back to the drawing board. We're trying to avoid getting to the point where we have to have process servers go out and hand deliver all these
I
things.
get it.
It's not easy, people are very creative with their
Crafty.
documents.
But how this reads, so certified mail, US mail, or email. So it's an or, we're not doing all three, just to say we did three and,
Well, this is just for the certification. They're gonna say that if you get it in any one of these ways, it's acceptable. Our process is gonna be send it by email and certified mail.
okay, thank
It's
you,
or.
thank you.
You're getting short, buddy.
Yep, sorry. And just in the effective day of the strike, and this is a longer conversation, but the short version is, the beers in this license, our ordinance says the strike is effective on the day of violation. And that was intended if someone stretched their trial out a few years with jury trials, that the strike didn't fall 3 years away. The judge interpreted the date of violation to be the first day the person did the thing we cited them for, which was advertising, not the day we cited them. So the applicant said, well, the first time I filled this ad was 18 months ago. And the judge said, you're right, so that strikes outside the 12-month window, we can't revoke your license. So we've got right now proposed language today, the citation, which doesn't completely solve the problem, because they can still ask for court dates in the future. So right now, we're proposing the date of citation to make it clear to the judge that that's what we meant, not the date of the violation. It's not a perfect solution at this point. And I'm out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you were scared 30 minutes wasn't gonna be long. Give Mr. Pope a minute to get back to his usual spot. You know that. Yeah. All right, we can call the meeting to order, and Mr. Pope call the roll.
Mr. Bazell? Here. Dr. Houghton?
Here.
Mr. Farley?
Here.
Mr. Fink? Here. Mr. Brooms? Here. Mr. Rich? Here. Mayor Goodwin?
Yeah.
You have a quorum.
Okay, so we'll have an invocation by Councilmember Farley, followed by the pledge of allegiance.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this community and the opportunity to serve. Guide our discussions with wisdom, unity, and respect. May our decisions reflect fairness and the well-being of all who call Folly Beach home. Bless our residents, first responders, and all those who work to keep our city a place of peace and beauty. Amen.
So we'll start off this evening with a motion to move into executive order to receive some legal information.
So moved.
Have a second? Second. So we're out of here at 7:02.